Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Quarantine Bunker Studio. I'm your man in Japan, Jay Contra, and we are doing another Showcase Showdown. Previously, we did about half of the showcase at Trader's main location in Akihabara. Here's the second half. We've got a lot of really interesting rare games here. I'm going to be doing this voiceover so that you can see, I can sort of share with you my knowledge about all of these games, tell you what I don't know also, and compare prices, and let's just get to it. So, here we go. This is interesting that they put a lot of the older consoles here. We can see some Game & Watches over on the right. But we're going to be going into the loose games first, and we can compare these to their complete prices as well. On the top left, we've got Bomberman 5, the gold cartridge, which is obviously much more rare. This was also printed in a regular gray cartridge, which is really cheap. I wouldn't pay more than $10 or maybe even $15 for Bomberman 5 loose. Here it's $400. I should mention, and I keep forgetting this in the videos, that it's about, right now it's pretty volatile, but generally the yen it's 110 yen for every dollar. The other thing is that all of the price labels here do not include tax. They do not include tax. Japanese sales tax is 10%. Some places will include the tax in the price, although more and more shops now are not, because it's actually gone up. It's actually doubled since I came to Japan 7 years ago. Now, if you are a tourist visiting Japan, you will generally be able to do things, you will be able to buy things tax-free. Trader, I am not sure if they provide that service, but places like Mandarake will, so include that in your calculations. So Bomberman 5 gold cartridge, $400. We've got, what is that? By Band Presto in the bottom left, it is Denrei. It's going for $80. I'm not familiar with that game. We've got the other game that I can't quite read the label. It's not as bright as I'd like it to be, going for $150. Bottom right is Captain Commando, going for $70. That could easily go for, I think, $200 if it was complete. I'm not familiar with that game either. I've just seen it around. And then we've got, at the top right, we've got Kiki Kai Kai Nazo no Kuromanto, which is the first Pakin Rocky. It's going for $100 here, which actually seems quite expensive. I've generally seen it go for $80 to $90 other places. If you're really lucky, you can find it for $50. It's just one of those games that people really enjoy, and the Pakin Rocky series, I mean, every game in that series is expensive. It's like I think it's the most expensive the Wii game that's out there. We saw in the last video the Game Boy Advance release. That was really expensive. Then peeking over on the right is a copy of Getter Love. Now, Getter Love is one of the very few expensive N64 games that is absolutely baffling to me that N64 was the first system that I collected for when I came to Japan, and none of the games have really gone up in price except for Getter Love and Bangayo. So Getter Love, if you're not familiar with it, it is a Japanese exclusive N64 game. It is sort of like a cross between Mario Party and a dating sim, where you play against your friends or the AI in little mini games to gain favor with a bunch of women that are running around the board. It's very strange. It's a great game. I actually reviewed it for this channel years ago. Here it's going for $130 loose, complete easily $200 depending on the store. Well, at the top is really interesting because it's a Game Boy Advance, and it's not any Game Boy Advance. It is the American release of the AGS 101. I can't remember what the exact lettering of it is, but it is the super really good backlit screen, because the Game Boy Advance in Japan is honestly pretty good, but this American release is the Game Boy Advance SP that you want to get. The Game Boy Advance Micro came out in Japan, which has a really good backlight to it, but it's just it's so tiny and it only plays Game Boy Advance games. Like the AGS 101 is the best way to play just Game Boy games, period, in my opinion. Below that, we've got, and it's also going for, sorry, on the label, it's going for $350. Woo, that's really expensive. Next, we've got Snow Bros, which is going for $140 loose. Now, this is a very rare Famicom game, and I'm surprised to see it going for this this price at Trader because you can find it at Mandarake for like $100. But that was also a couple years ago. The price on this is pretty variable, but Famicom games aren't really going up in price, if at all. Most of the times they're actually going down in price. It's very surprising to see this at the price it is. Over on the right, we've got Soroin. Sorry, I can't read the label that well. It's going for $60. Not familiar with it. Can't tell you that much about it. On the bottom right, we've got the gold copy of the Mobile Suit Gundam Z Hot Scramble going for $600. This is like a dollar game if you find it in its normal black cartridge, but this was a promotional item. I can't remember how people got this, but I've seen this go for $700, maybe even $900 at Super Potato. It's not, I don't think it's that sought after that much anymore, but it's still really expensive. I've also got some really expensive loose Game Boy games here. We've got, oh, what is that? I can't tell. Is that Phantasm? I'm sorry, I can't read the label through the casing, but it's going for $300, a Jalico game. And we've also got Trip World by Sunsoft. That's going for $200. I can't tell you that much about those Game Boy games. However, I am very familiar with the Castlevania games, so look, we'll just go from left to right. So we've got Metal Slug, which is $120. I think loose, complete, easily it's $300. We've also got Circle of the Moon, which is $60, which is actually not that much different from a complete inbox copy. I think at the same Trader, they had it for $90 complete, although it's really beat up. Then we've got to its right in the white, we've got Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, I think is what it was called in English. That's going for $80. That's in Tokyo, it's very easily complete $130, $140 game. Then we've got right next to it is Aria of Sorrow. All the Castlevania games are really expensive. Aria of Sorrow is very easily a $200 game. It is crazy expensive. I saw it for $120 once, and it was a big mistake not to buy it then because I've been looking for it ever since. But also peeking over on the right, we have the Game Boy Advance port of Street Fighter Alpha 3, generally considered, at least by me, the best Street Fighter game out there. And it's going for $60 loose. I can't believe, people really want it for the Game Boy Advance. Is it like arcade perfect? Is it really that good? I don't know. Then we've got, was that Zaz? Is it just A? I don't know what that game is, but it's $400. 39,800 yen, 400 US dollars. That's insane. I cannot believe that loose Game Boy games are getting that expensive. There's been a real explosion, especially in the last couple years, of just not just Game Boy Advance games. Game Boy Advance games is where you've seen the biggest movement, but it's Game Boy Color games really have shot up in price for reasons that I'm not sure. Then over on the right, I think these are Game Boy games. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got some interesting titles. These look like shooters. We've got Batoru Gyusu. That's going for $190, and it's not even like in mint condition. So we've got the labels up here. So this would be a good explanation. So if you look, both of these actually have the same problems. So we've got the first kanji is Hako, and then we've got the manual. So Hako and Manuaru. So we've got those have what are called itami, or like damage. So I think kizu is scratch. Itami means generally that even if you look at the boxes, they have little like flakes to the ink just because, just from normal wear and tear. It's not that big of a deal. They will just cut the price down on it a little bit. Places like Mandarake will really bring down the price. I saw a copy of Stargate for the Super Famicom for some reason, and it was 8,000 yen in beat up shape, which is that it had a couple of scratches on the box. And then in mint A grade condition, it was like 1,000 or 18,000 yen. So it was $80 in decent, really, to me as an American, really good condition, versus it was $80 versus $180 for a mint copy. So just keep that in mind when looking at some of these games. We'll go more in depth because I can see the super special game that's on the right. In the middle, though, we have Galvanic Gunner GG Alest. Aleste is a really good shooting series. I can't believe this copy is going for $680. That's crazy to me. Not because it's a bad price for the game. I actually don't know what a good value for this game is, but just seeing a Game Boy game that is that expensive. Whoa. And also peeking over to the right. Sorry about the frame rate on this. I've gotta do screen sharing to actually get this to work. We've got some very expensive Super Famicom games. To the left, we have the most expensive Super Famicom game. This is Rendering Ranger R2. If you saw the video from a couple of weeks ago where we looked at the other showcase in Trader, this was going for, in pretty good condition with no problems, going for about $2,500 is I want to say what that was. Here, and very helpfully in English, it says that the box has obvious damage and color changes, and the manual has great damage. Now, I don't know what the manual is going to look like. They don't show it here. You can very obviously see some label fade to this box. Now, that happens for a number of reasons. Generally, it's because it's been exposed to some kind of light. Either it's sunlight, which can really damage games, or it's because, this happens a lot, Japanese game shops for the longest time were not wrapping their video games in UV protecting plastic. They would either wrap it in just regular plastic or they would just have it out bare, the box. Now what happens is when you put this really close, as is often the case in showcases, you put it really close to a light source, very often just a simple fluorescent light. Over time, because these games are so expensive, they're not high volume games, so they just sit in the showcase for a year or like 3 or 4 years. I've seen this copy of Rendering Ranger R2 here. I think I've seen it in Trader for like 2 or 3 years now. And if they didn't have the protective coating on it, or the protective plastic on it, the label would just like fade to oblivion. And so that's why you can get $500 off on this game. Now, if this was being sold at Mandarake, they would slash the price on this. Mandarake is really good about selling games at very reduced prices because the quality's down. Now that can be for a lot of different reasons. Here it's mostly because of the label fade. If it's great damage to the manual, that could mean one of the pages has been folded over or in the corner. It could have a couple of cuts to it from handling. Don't know what's going on with this game. What is personally more interesting to me is over on the right, we've got the sample edition ROMs for Romancing Saga 3, which is going at $150, and we've got the sequel to Seiken Densetsu, Seiken Densetsu 3. It's Trial of Mana, I think is what they finally localized it to. Here we've got the sort of like the demo version. I don't even know how you would have got these because these are like cartridges. They're cartridges of like the first 20 minutes or an hour of the game, but they're like full cartridges. I don't know if these were meant for like review purposes or if you won these in contests. I don't know, but these are very rare and sought after. And so actually, it's interesting to me that Romancing Saga 3 is only $150, but I personally don't like Romancing Saga. So, but I love Seiken Densetsu, so $300 is what they're charging for the demo version there. You can see it's really cool. They've got like Romancing Saga. It's to release on November 11th, although it doesn't say the year. And then on the Seiken Densetsu 3, it says, it's scheduled to release in September. Very interesting to me. I really hope this smooths out. I was taking this with an iPhone, and I have to do like I'm screen recording right now just so that I can edit it better. Wow, and a lot of interesting that they have American stuff in this showcase. So we've got what's doubly interesting to me is that it's Maximum Carnage for the Super Nintendo. The thing about Maximum Carnage is the release for the Mega Drive in Japan is the most expensive Mega Drive game. It is, I want to say, at least $4,000 for the Mega Drive copy of Maximum Carnage. And then they've got here the Super Nintendo release, which is $130. So yeah, that's funny. Then we've got, for the Game Boy, we've got Battletoads. That's going for $380. Battletoads had a limited release in Japan, so the Famicom version, which is actually much easier compared to the NES release, that goes loose anywhere $50 to $100 for the Famicom version, and upwards of like $200, $300 for the complete copy. Then we've also got Banishingu Deisa for $380, a Jalico game for the Game Boy. I'm not familiar with that game. I guess it's a racing game, I guess, probably. And then we've got a Genesis game. We've got Comic Zone for $200. That's very interesting. Now, interestingly enough, now on the label, it says that it cannot be played on a Japanese system, but I know you can definitely play Japanese Mega Drive games on an American Genesis. And it's not like it's an NTSC game, so I'm pretty sure you can play it. I'm pretty sure you can play vice versa. You can play American games on a Japanese system, but I've never tried. So don't quote me on that if for some reason you go to Japan and you want to pick up Comic Zone for $200. Yeah, weird. I've never seen American games in a showcase like this. Here we go. We've got a couple of Game & Watches. We've got Vermin going for $380. It's apparently got a lot of problems with it, though. It has you can see the damage to the box, and then it has damage to the spacer. I think that's the cardboard insert inside that protects the game in the box. To the something else, and then the manual, and then actually to the thing, and then actually to the console itself. Then we also have Manhole, which is going for $240. Complete. I think it does have everything. It's got a little checkbox. Oh, there we go. So there's Metal Slug Advance going for $290. Man, Metal Slug games are just expensive no matter the system. That's crazy. Except for like the re-releases for the PlayStation 2. Those aren't expensive that much, but you're still paying like $10 for a ROM port, and if that's what you want to pay. Metal Slug's really good though. And then, wow, is this the most expensive 32X game? I've never seen this before. This is WWF Raw for the Super 32X. I don't know if that's different from the regular 32X. That's going for $600 for a wrestling game. Wow. It's one of those things. I mentioned this in the previous video, but games for foreign properties, although wrestling is sort of a pretty significant subculture here in Japan, but yeah, it's one of those foreign property games that received a localization, low print run, and so I'm guessing people just want this to complete collections. So wow, $600 for that. That is, I'm not going to say absurd because everything is worth what its purchaser will pay for it, but I'm just really surprised that a WWF game would be that expensive in Japan. Here we've got another copy of Battletoads going for $400, and then we also have one of the Kunio-kun games. What is that? Story to Basketo. So Ganbare Dunk Heroes is going for $140. I would be really surprised if this was that expensive loose. The thing for a lot of Famicom games is there's a really big difference between their loose price and their complete in box price. And generally, if it's a $150 game complete, I mean, yeah, $10, $20 maybe. Oh, and then there's Doropi. I don't know how much that's gonna cost. Let's see how this goes. I don't know why it's slowing down here. Okay, here we got. Oh, so okay, this is the game that I couldn't even recognize because I couldn't see the label in the last showcase. So we've got Doropi here, which is a game about witches. I'm guessing. I've never played it myself. That's going for $300, $330, with a little bit of damage to it, but it looks perfectly in acceptable condition to me. And then we also have Battle Formula, which we saw another copy in Trader. This is going also for $790. Battle Formula is a Sunsoft release. It was released abroad as Super Spy Hunter, I think is the game. I should have checked it on Wikipedia, but it's like a $10 or $20 game abroad. But Battle Formula is the second most expensive behind Summer Carnival 2, or Summer Carnival Rekka. That's the most expensive Famicom game. Battle Formula, yeah, man, complete $800. That's crazy. And I wonder if this is going to start going down in price as people move away from the Famicom, because everybody's moving towards PlayStation's really jumped up, Game Boy Advance has really jumped up, PlayStation 2's starting to creep up. So that's, I think, where all of the collecting's going. Here we go to a bunch of Famicom games. We've got Final Mission on the bottom right. On the bottom left, we've got Contra. Now, this Contra used to be like a $200, $250 game complete. Maybe that was for better versions, but this looks like a really decent version in box. About a B grade, I would say, in Japanese terms. and it's going for $150. And then we've got, oh, Samurai Pizza Cats. I can't. Okay, so I can't tell what they. So Teyande, Kyatsu something Ninden. That's going for, I want to say, if I'm reading the label right, $210. Man, I remember Samurai Pizza Cats from when I was a kid. I didn't realize that they actually came out with a game for it. At least I think this is Samurai Pizza Cats. At least all the characters look familiar. I'm going off of 20-year-old knowledge at this point. I haven't seen that in 20 years. Oh my god. And then we've got, what is that? Is that Holy Diver? Am I reading that label right? I can't tell from the glare. That's going for $140. And then we've got Metal Storm on the left. Metal Storm is absolutely fantastic. It's probably too short, honestly, to be worth $280 because that's a game you can complete very easily in a weekend. But yeah, it's definitely one of the best Famicom games that's ever been released. It's one of those games that was released pretty late in the life cycle, so it didn't have a high print run. Combine that with being just a phenomenal game. $280 complete actually seems like a really good price to me because Metal Storm loose is $100. Like even now, I think it's actually starting to go down in price loose, but that complete copy for $280, that's really good. So yeah, so I haven't actually, I probably should have watched this. Oh, so it doesn't have some kind of, so the reason the Contra is cheaper than it should be is because it doesn't have a card. But I don't know what that card means because obviously it has the cartridge and the manual, but I'm guessing it's missing some extra insert that is unique to Contra. Then we've got Just Go 30th Anniversary Game Boy Color. Now, it doesn't look that different from the Grape Skeleton Game Boy. It doesn't look like it has any distinct markings. It's just the box. You might be paying $460 just for a label on a box, but I'm not that familiar with Game Boy Color variants, so I'm not sure about that. And then here we have looks like a faded copy of Gimmick, or it's kind of browning copy of Gimmick that's going for, is that six? It's either 600 or 800. I want to say it's 600. I definitely would not be paying $800 for a copy of Gimmick. Gimmick's anywhere from $600 to $700 when it's complete. Beneath that, we've got a Famicom copy of Dragon's Lair. That's going for, I hope I go down to that price. So we've got Dragon's Lair going for $140 and Stargate going for $120. I do not believe that is related to the amazing Stargate SG-1 series or movie. Here we've got Wild Guns going for, I think that's $670. Wild Guns is, they had the Switch re-release not too long ago. That was only ever released abroad. They didn't release it in Japan, so I don't think it's really affected the price. Although Super Famicom games seem to be stabilizing a lot, especially compared to where they were 2 years ago and even going slightly down. I know loose Wild Guns is easily $200. If you're lucky, you can find it for $150. That's what I would pay for it. It's about $150 loose. We've got Earthworm Jim, another one of those foreign properties, going for $290 complete. And then we've got Mr. Nuts, which for some reason is $700. Never heard of Mr. Nuts before. Never seen it outside of a Super Famicom game. And then we've also got the Bugs Bunny game by Sunsoft over on the right going for Animaniacs. Interesting. Okay, so we've got a couple. This is the other thing. So we've got Bugs Bunny's Adventure going for $350. Saw that in the other showcase. And we've got Animaniacs going for $270. And I believe I saw this loose in the same shop going for about $90. For some reason, it's really expensive. It's a Konami game, so it probably plays pretty well. People want it. But I don't think Animaniacs was that well known in Japan. I don't even know if it got a localization here. The cartoon, at least. Next to that, we've got, this is the Pocky and Rocky 2. It's Kiki Kai Kai kanji that I don't know how to read. And this is actually usually more expensive than the first Pocky and Rocky because I think it had a more limited release. Loose, I want to say it's $150. Complete $530. Yeah, I mean Pocky and Rocky's a good series. It's fun to play. Then over on the extreme right, we've got Doremi Fantasy. That's going for $330 complete. Never heard of that game. I hope it's good. Is that a Hudson Soft game? Well, can't believe Hudson Soft games are getting that expensive. We've also got Harley's Humongous Adventure going for $320, and Ghoul Patrol going for $400 by Victor. There's, the Super Famicom, I said this before, because it has such an extensive library, it is just really, really, there's just so many games out there that it's really hard to keep track. So you have all of these expensive games that it's just really hard for me, who I know a little bit about the Super Famicom, but I just can't tell you why some of these games are as expensive as they are. Other than perhaps for The Amazing Spider-Man, which is going for $330, and Wolverine, which is going for $290. The reason they would be expensive is because they're just Marvel games that just had a limited release in Japan, so people are going to want them because if they're fans of Marvel, they're going to want them, and also just to complete collections. On the right, however, is Super Turrican, which is a really good action shooting game, so it's no surprise that it's going for $630. Loose, man, I'd really love to have a loose copy of this just because I think it'd be really fun to play. I just haven't gotten around to picking it up yet. Super Turrican, I believe the people who developed Super Turrican also developed Rendering Ranger R2, so it's, they got a legacy of quality there. And then for the, an American release of 32X Blackthorn for $300. Trader, actually, now that I think about it, the only places I know of to find foreign games consistently is Super Potato and Trader. Mandarake used to carry foreign games, but they don't carry those anymore. For some reason, they got rid of them. And yeah, you just don't see foreign games that much. Really only in Tokyo, and I've seen them in hard-offs occasionally. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got some really expensive Mega Drive games. We've got on the right, we've got Vampire Killer for $500. It used to be like a $700 game. And this is another game that I know very specifically about because I want it, but I'm not a millionaire, so I'm not paying $500 for Vampire Killer. And I can't remember I've got very bad short-term memory. Be very careful about buying expensive Japanese games, even in Japan. So the thing about something like Vampire Killer is because it's a widely sort of known game and people really want it, and it had a low print run because it was for the Mega Drive. There are lots of reproductions out there floating around as if they were the real thing. You can very easily go to eBay right now and find copies who either innocently or not are fake copies of the game that are being sold at full price. You can very easily go to a place like Alibaba or AliExpress and buy a copy of this game, a reproduction, for $50. And even in Japan, I feel like there's not really the expertise at these shops. I feel like these shops are not paying the clerks enough to know stuff like this, because someone who knows how to check for the inconsistencies on reproduction games, their services are going to be really expensive, and I think above what these shops are going to pay. I've heard stories about people just coming in, they sell games, the clerk just takes a quick look at them, grades them, puts them on the shelf. If it's a really expensive game, the clerk calls the manager over, they take a look at it, they put it on the shelf. And because from a foreign perspective of where it's really hard to know what these games actually look like unless you have the Japanese sources. There's a couple of Twitter accounts out there that will post how to tell the differences between these games, but unless you have access to these resources, unless you know Japanese, unless you're really familiar with these games, I would just be very careful before you spend your money on games like this. I've been very careful. I've only bought a couple of really expensive Japanese games, and I've just double-checked everything to make sure that they are legitimate copies. Next, we've got Underline, which is going for $310. I believe that's a shooter. Again, what's great about Mega Drive games is you can look at the bottom left corner on some of these games, and they've got icons showing you what kind of game it is. Here we've got the jet fighter that's going through and it's shooting at you. That means it's a shooting game. And then we've got Captain Lang going for $270. I could not tell you why. The Mega Drive, so the thing about the Mega Drive, just in general, is that Oh, that looks like cotton. I can't. Oh yeah, no, it is cotton. So we've got on the right, we've got Twinkle Tail going for $670, and then we've got cotton there. I can't. Sorry about the glare. Can't tell what the actual title is. It's going for $560. I knew cotton games were expensive. I didn't know these. I didn't know Mega Drive cotton games were really expensive. So the Mega Drive just was not really that successful in Japan, or at least it wasn't successful as it was in the US or Europe. So print runs were very limited, and Sega's actually been very good about promoting nostalgia for their systems, even though they don't make systems anymore. So Mega Drive games have really, especially the rare stuff, are even more expensive than rare Super Famicom games. And we've also got Rockman Mega World going for $250. Yeah, that's like just crazy, and it's not even in mint condition. We've also got McDonald's Treasureland Adventure going for $200, just about. Then we've also got, oh, where am I going to pause? Where am I going to pause? Okay, yeah. So we've got that Penguin game over on the right for $150. The big one to me is Fire Emblem Thrakia 776. That is, wow, $200. That's really gone up in price. Because I remember I bought a really not in great shape box from Sudugaya years ago for like $140. Now, Thrakia, the unique thing about Thrakia, if you're sort of familiar with Fire Emblem, this was the last game to come out on the Super Famicom, and it actually was a Nintendo Power game. Nintendo Power in Japan was this system where you got a blank cartridge, it's a white cartridge. You would take it to a convenience store. I think it was Lawson. They had a big machine. It was much like the disc system was back in the 80s, but in the 90s it was Nintendo Power. You put the cartridge into the kiosk and you could download games from the kiosk for like really, really cheap. That was how Thrakia was originally released, and it ended up getting a packaged release much later. There's actually two versions. There's a big box version that has like a plushie in it, a couple of special inserts, and I think the Nintendo Power cartridge, the white cartridge, preloaded. This is a labeled Fire Emblem Thrakia 776 actual labeled cartridge. This is very unique. I think it came out in like 1999 or 2000. It was a very late release, a very, very limited print run, and it's also apparently really, really hard. I have not played it yet. I'm trying to play through all of the other Fire Emblems before I get to what is supposed to be a beast of a game. Next, we've got Joe and Mac 3. That's going for $300. And then we also have Ghost Chaser going for $260. So what was it? Loose, it was $80. And then we have it in the box, $260. And then we've also got Choplifter 3 going for $270. Don't know that much about it. I'm sure it's probably a shooting game. Here we've got the original release of Nam 1975, excuse me. That's going for $230. I remember years ago this was like a $100 game. It was sort of the example of a really good, cheap Neo Geo game, but its price has really shot up. My guess is a lot of Neo Geo games, I think the nostalgia has moved on from this era, and people also just think the Neo Geo is really expensive, so I really doubt that you're going to be seeing big price increases, except for the very rare games. I think games like Nam 1975, I doubt they're going to go anywhere, but I don't have a crystal ball. That's just my guess. We also have Double Dragon. I believe this Double Dragon is just the 2D fighter. It's not like a belt scroller, I think, maybe, but it's going for $400. It's crazy how you've got even some of the 2D fighters for the Neo Geo are getting really, really expensive. We've got Breakers, which is going for Breakers is going for $3,500. That is wow. All these fighting games, and then we've also got Burning Fight, which is going for $380. We've got Art of Fighting going for $600. Can't believe it's that expensive. I didn't think it was that uncommon. And we also have Baka Dono-sama Mahjong something, a Mahjong game going for $380. A Mahjong game? People really want that? And then we've got another copy. Saw this in the other showcase. We've got Ghost Pilots, which is a shooter for the Neo Geo, going for $370. And Top Players Golf, which is going for $198. Wow, yeah. So ending on the most expensive console, the Neo Geo. That's it for this showcase. Yeah, a lot of very interesting games, very expensive games. Had a lot of fun making this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be doing this kind of style of video, hopefully working out the kinks. Seemed to work well last time. Don't know what happened with the frame rate this time. Got to figure that out. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a little bit about some of the rarest Japanese games that are out there. I've been your man in Japan, Jay Contra, saying thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay safe and mahalo.